Can everyone in this room be sure that each and every one of us see the exact same shade of red on the screen? Can we be sure that the bird outside that window or that fly hovering over your head also see this exact same shade of red? So the question arises, is our visual perception different from each other and other organisms? And if so, how is it different? I'm Ishaan Patil, as she introduced me, and I'm a second year student of life science, and I took it up because of the phenomenal way in which it explained all of biology to me. I'm also an amateur artist and have this extreme love for art. And today, through this talk, I'm hopefully going to trick all of you into believing that I make complete sense of these two very unrelated topics. Perception and perspective, which means what you see and what you understand from it, are two main factors we'll be looking at when it comes to understanding of art. All of us here use visual information to see or to perceive the world around us. And at the beginning of this process, or at the start of this journey of this visual information, lies the retina, which according to me is this incredibly dynamic structure which helps you convert the external light into an internal visual signal. And the retina further has these photoreceptors which convert, well, this visual signal into neural ones. And these photoreceptors are mainly of two kinds: rods, which help you see in the dark, and cones, which help you see light or colored light. Now, most of us here, being trichromatic, can see cones are sensitive to three main kinds of light, mainly red, blue and green. So we are trichromatic, but there are even some of us who are dichromatic or colorblind as we know it. They can visualize only two sets of colors, that is green and blue. And there are even these superhumans who are tetrachromatic, which means they have this incredible ability to see even a fourth color. Their eyes are sensitive to an extra color than ours. And as an artist, I see that really unfair. Like, come on. I wish I had that visual perception to see extra colors. And honestly, I blame it on my parents. Because, see, even though all of us are tetrachromatic, we have different genes and a different background. Which means that our perception is different from each of us, and the way we see a color like violet is as unique as your genetic makeup. And although as humans we see this tiny fraction of this huge electromagnetic spectrum, there are these organisms that live amongst us who can see other parts of the spectrum. One such example is that of bees. So bees, in addition to what we see, they do not have this red cone that we have, but they have this UV sensitive photoreceptor, which means that bees can see UV light. So although it's nearly impossible for us to picturize what it would look like, this is an artistic representation and what could be what bees see. So although this flower looks rather dull and not as bright as that sunflower which you have in mind, it has this depth in it, a depth which our eyes cannot. One more example is that of diurnal birds. They have 4 or 5 kind of photoreceptors, which means along with this UV, they have what it takes to see visible light. And they have cones in places which are sensitive to yellow light, which means they probably could differentiate between lemon yellow and canary yellow. Well, most of us can't do that, but these birds can, that sparrow can. And there are even some organisms like snakes which can perceive infrared light, which is on the other side of the spectrum. And there are even some organisms like this invertebrate called the mantis shrimp. Now, it's a waste of cones on a shrimp, honestly. But they have these 12 different kinds of cones, which is amazing. And they have this ability to see this vast spectrum and even this new level of vision that they have. Now, take a minute to digest this, that there's so much diversity in our vision and the animal's vision. So a piece of artwork can be seen in this multitude of ways by each and every one of us. So it's not just one artwork. It's this image that all of us perceive individually, and not just as different species but as different individuals. So this is one of my paintings, and what I did was, the first one is the original one, and I applied a few filters, added few colors, just to give an idea what it would look like when it's given three different perspectives. Now just imagine this in like a million or even a billion perspectives. That's what each and every of us are seeing. Every vision is different. Now we have covered this perception. Now let's come to perspective. Each of us think differently and understand differently, and different species have even a different way than us. And after seeing things, what we do is understand this knowledge or try to make sense out of it. And at the center of this process lies the brain. As you know, it controls all of our body functions. And this brain contains this tiny part called the hypothalamus and the pituitary. And the hypothalamus is this structure that controls all of our hormones. And this hypothalamus pituitary together are controlling these different ways in which we work, our body temperature, our emotions. So it's a very important part of the brain. Now there's this pathway which goes from your eye to your hypothalamus, which is called a visual hypothalamic pathway. Which means that whatever you see is going to the hypothalamus, it's acting as a relay center and then going to your brain. And since I have established that pituitary also secretes hormones, it secretes sex hormones and plays this important role in mating behaviors. So there's this indirect link between what you see and your mating behavior. So as we understand, what you see can make you feel something. Art invokes emotion. The way a certain piece of visual art makes you feel can be directly now linked to the hypothalamus and the mating rituals, which means that you can trick someone into liking you by changing your aesthetic or changing the way they see you. And this is exploited by animals a lot, and birds. For example, a bowerbird. Now bowerbirds create these bowers, and I'll come to what these are. But even though these mating rituals have this selfish idea of, the selfish idea of selecting the best gene pool for your offspring, because that's what selection of the fittest is, they also have this, each and every organism, and birds has the ability to understand this aesthetic. Now let's come to bowerbirds. So bowerbirds are these native Oceania species which create these beautiful looking nests. Now male bowerbirds are the ones who create this nest, and they use any kind of colorful material that they could find. So from leaves, flowers, fruits to even man-made material like pieces of plastic, cloth or metal pieces. Which means that given an array of material, a bowerbird can objectively create the best looking artwork, or a piece of art, what we call. For them it's the nest, but let's assume it's a piece of art. And this understanding can be studied through male and female bowerbirds, because the male bowerbird is creating this art and the female is understanding what this art is or judging it. So basically the bower acts like this piece of artwork in an art competition where the winner gets to have babies with the judge. So I have covered sex hormones, I have covered aesthetics, and now as an artist I have this understanding of art and appreciation from it, and by what I understand, there is something called taste which plays a role in this. Like my taste in visual art might be different from each of us, and where that stems is also mating behavior. So these bowerbirds have this particular taste. Now I might like a different kind of ice cream from someone in the audience. I like the taste of it also, but there is a taste or selection or personal choice that comes into the picture. Now every single bowerbird might have a personal choice if it likes blue objects over orange, or if it likes a mixture of both, or if even how they are perceived or how they are kept near the nest. So this taste plays a very important role in appreciation of art, and since every individual has a different taste, each of us can appreciate art differently. I've covered this artistic taste, appreciation, hormones. But as a biologist, I cannot end this talk without asking this question of why. And why is this important in biology, or what is the significance of it? Well, even if we are different from these animals, on a basic level, all our nervous systems are quite similar. There are a large number of commonalities between nervous systems of humans, these animals, and different birds, and even invertebrates for that matter. And through these commonalities, we can study human behaviors. So a large number of animal instincts give us an understanding of how human behaviors work, or give us a rationality of why we created art in the first place, why we understand, why we like art in the first place, why art makes us feel a certain way. And since I know both sides of the story, I have learned biology well a little bit, and I also know art. I can tell you that art is not just what the viewer perceives or what the artist makes. It's merely a factor of our nerves. Thank you.